The Islands of the World Conference 2012 featured over 100 presentations from more than 60 countries, including 4 keynote addresses and a youth forum. The 4-day conference engendered a tremendous sharing of information and presented a wide variety of challenges facing small island states as well as suggested solutions. Walter Barrett has his report.
The success of the 4-day conference can be measured by the quality and plethora of topics presented on a wide variety of challenges facing small island states, as well as suggested solutions. Statistics on social challenges, small island cultural identity, uses of technological development, migration patterns, environment, governance, tourism, financial services, philanthropy, climate change, small island economies, alternative energy, and education solutions were just some of the many topics discussed. One of many revelations that came out of the conference is that the increasing prison rate of black males in the region is what Caribbean males are being identified by, whether they realize it or not. Associate Professor in the University of the Virgin Islands, Dr. Susie Hani, speaking on examining recidivism and education in the USVI prison system, gave some statistics regarding Caribbean males in the prison.
According to the International Center for Prison Studies, the islands of the Caribbean feature prominently in the world's prison population. Out of 219 countries reported in 2011, 4 Caribbean countries are in the top 10 for prison rate. Ranked at 5th place in the world, the USVI leads the Caribbean. The USVI also leads other U.S. territories, such as American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico. As we are talking about a U.S. territory, I also made a comparison to the United States of America. The USVI's prison rate was below only 8 U.S. states, as reported in 2010. And that did not include the islands of Hawaii. So these statistics are part of a long increasing trend that speaks to how we are identified, whether or not we realize that it is now becoming part of our identity, is this increasing imprisonment rate.
Speaking specifically to the youth on steps the world is taking to fight HIV/AIDS, HIV/AIDS Ambassador Wendy Fitzwilliam pointed to Cuba, which has the highest containment rate to date.
Cuba in early 2000 made HIV/AIDS testing mandatory for every pregnant woman, every person in a hospital, and all prisoners. And they also made very tough decisions that we've been debating for years, like introducing condoms into the prison system. And then tracing the sexual partners of anyone discovered to be HIV positive. Not to put them in jail or beat them up, but just to make sure that they get care. And when you are discovered to be HIV positive in Cuba, they have relaxed this particular aspect of the law now, but it was mandatory from 2001 to roughly 2006 that you go to a sanatorium, for 8 weeks to get counseling and to understand the kind of care you would be required to live with for the rest of your life. Now that seems draconian, but it worked. You know, Cuba has the lowest rate of infection in the Caribbean and in most of the Western Hemisphere, quite frankly. And even though it's no longer mandatory to go to, you know, the name sanatorium is so ugly. We think crazy people, unstable, but most Cubans who are discovered to be positive now actually voluntarily go and spend their 8 weeks, even though it's no longer mandatory, in the sanatoriums, because that facilitates them learning how to live well.
One of the topics heavily discussed during the conference was the environment and what can be done to mitigate the effects of climate change. Dr. Kenneth Martin Keogh, part of the Mosquito Island development team, explained how the team set out to make the island eco-friendly with such initiatives as its recycling project.
Working with John Gunling and the assessment team that had worked with Harvard Green Campus Initiative, he helped us map out the various material flows of solid waste. In this case, taking most of the solid waste, begin to separate it into organics, inorganics that are recyclables, and then try to minimize the waste for dump. But in terms of organics, it's certainly quite workable. A fair amount of landscape through the pruning, through the processes to be able to cultivate the landscape so that we have soil amendments and return that into workable soil to support the landscape development, to support the gardens. Because as we know, in many of these situations, the highly nutrition-rich soils are a rich resource that we don't find all that often. In Mosquito Island, there's quite a sort of heavy clay content in much of the soils. So we certainly welcome this level of work so that we can begin to turn over the organics and begin to cultivate that to add to the development of the island resources.
The Islands of the World 2012 conference engaged a tremendous sharing of information among islands, and with the proper analysis and processing, it has revealed opportunities for advancement in all areas of human development and environmental activity. The question becomes, what relationship among these small island states can be forged that will enable them to share their expertise to achieve that advancement? This is Walter Barrett for JTV News.